Video stream. For those who are watching on TV, you see the snowy outside. Bill McKibben, just back from Poland. Andrew Revkin also wrote extensively about what was happening in Poznan, about this north-south, this wealthy nation, poorer nation divide. Can you elaborate on that, Andrew?
Yeah, well, in 2007 already, we wrote a long series of stories called The Climate Divide, which was illustrating one of the most uncomfortable realities about climate change, which is that the countries that are most vulnerable to climate extremes right now, even before you add the big pulse of what would come from the buildup of greenhouse gases, they're not the countries that have any history emitting the gases that are starting to cause the change. So there's this sense of obligation of the rich countries to act. And what it's doing, it's intensifying this long-standing, festering kind of north-south, you know, what are you going to do for us question. And again, it's getting more intense. You see in Africa, the African Union in 2007 had some very strong statements about, again, you know, and actually, you know, what's really strange is Europe and some of the greener countries involved with Kyoto, they're pressing Africa to worry about greenhouse gases, even as Africa is saying, hey, you guys have the entire history of building this problem, so what are you going to do for us? It's just, and how that plays out, I don't know. It's going to be tough because strangely, the IPCC projections from last year, this big intergovernmental panel on climate that came out with these 4 reports, the 4th in 20 years and 4 big chapters, they, if you look in there, oddly, the agricultural productivity, for example, of the northern hemisphere, places like where we live, may actually go up for a while because of longer growing seasons before we hit our own wall. So the countries that are least able to deal with this right now are saying, move, our citizenry is sort of sitting around, and even our, in some cases, governments are saying, well, you know, maybe we don't need to move so fast. And you get this really strong sense of a dynamic that could be real trouble. You're going to see more and more of this kind of yelling. Now, how that resolves, I don't know.
And Bill McKibben, how did it play out at the conference, the stopping of any kind of serious arrival at some kind of goals to cut greenhouse gas emissions?
Oh, no one expected this conference to do that. This was an interim thing. Everybody's waiting to see what happens in Washington. But the real bottom line is that what we need between now and Copenhagen, if anything is going to happen, is a movement. And that we can really sense beginning to build there in Poland. We at 350.org, which emerged as the kind of de facto global grassroots climate movement, had organizers there from every continent. We had 100 or 200 young people from all around the world doing an amazing job of lobbying their delegations, but much more importantly, laying plans for a huge international day of action next October 24th. We got some little sense of what that was going to look like during the week when we organized a little demonstration almost as a test in the Himalayan nation of Ladakh. 1,500 people turned out for a day-long 350 rally, as it were, led by the Buddhist Association there in Ladakh. That's the equivalent of about 2.5 million people turning out on the Washington Mall for a demonstration, given their population size. I think it gives some sense of the kind of movement that's beginning to build around the world, especially in poor nations, but also in rich ones, to demand real change. If we can bring it together at 350.org before Copenhagen, we have a chance of really changing that debate.
Bill McKibben, Greenpeace, Ruckus Society, Rainforest Action Network, we're all organizing around this March 2nd anti-coal plant civil disobedience. Where is the coal plant that you're organizing against?
This is, if the people in Ladakh are doing what they need to do, one of the things we have to do in this country is take on our dependence on coal, where 50% of our electricity comes from. On March 2nd, a bunch of us will be organizing the first big mass civil disobedience in this country around coal outside the coal-fired power plant that powers the nation's capital. Wendell Berry and I just sent out a letter, the Kentucky farmer and writer, asking people please to come for this first big event. You can find more information at the Rainforest Action Network website, or just Google civil disobedience March 2nd, Washington. And it's going to be in the China light. We've done a pretty good job in the last 2 years on blocking new coal-fired power plants. We need now to take on the whole question of coal. Jim Hansen of NASA, our greatest climatologist, said recently that if the entire world is not out of the business of burning coal by 2030, and the developed world well before that, there's no way that we'll ever get back to 350 parts per million. We will have put too much carbon into the atmosphere.
And where
so this is job one.
Where this coal-fired plant is exactly outside D.C., outside the nation's capital?
The capital. In fact, you can. It's an incredible view with the smokestack from it, dropping coal soot all over the poor people of Washington. But right past the smokestack, you get a beautiful view of the Capitol dome.
Bill McKibben, I'd like to ask you to stay with us. We're going to break. But last comment, Andrew Revkin of the New York Times, on where you see the direction of the Obama energy team going.
Well, there's two directions, legislation and innovation. And legislation is going to be all focused on trying to finally to get through Congress a cap and trading system. That's what Obama said he was going to push for.